We're going back to the middle miracle that we have in Mark 5. The woman who's cured of a disease. Now here we have a justification of the Catholic teaching about relics. You see, we Catholics have first, second, third class relics. Right? And this is wise to class them because, you know, after all, if I've got a piece of Jesus' sandal, that's going to be far more important than having a piece of some other garments that might have been touched by Jesus' sandal. But that piece of garment that might have been touched by Jesus' sandal is far more important than any old piece of cloth. So it's reasonable to classify relics. But the question is, and which Protestants focus on, what is it with all these relics? Isn't this crazy? You have relics, isn't this primitive and savage and barbaric? And don't you think that touching a relic is so like backward and superstitious? Well, the woman, well, here we are, Eric, it is superstitious. But you see now, Eric, if you'd have been the woman with the issue of blood, you'd never have got healed. Because what would have happened is, somebody like you might have come up and said, if you thought, well, maybe, I can do what these Catholics do. I can touch the hem of Jesus' garments. Don't have to touch him. Just touch the hem of his garments and I shall be healed. If you didn't, you'd not be healed. She took a chance. She touched the hem. Now, why did she touch the hem? Because she was unclean in the ritual sense. So she realised you don't touch the divine one if you're ritually unclean. So wise as she was, she touched part of his clothing and she was nonetheless healed. So it shows that relics work. We can at least say at the time of Jesus, if you've got Jesus' garments, you can be healed. We go back in the Old Testament, in fact. We haven't lost all the crown of thorns, we still have some of the thorns. The crown of thorns was held, I think, in Byzantium, and the Crusaders took a lot of stuff, stole a lot of stuff. I think the Fourth Crusade, I think, when our folks sacked Constantinople, 1204, I think that was, and we caused a great deal of dislike. In fact, the Byzantines, you might say, the Greek Orthodox are the Ian Paisley of the East. They don't like us because we, you know, caused them some trouble and nicked their valuable stuff in it. But in fact, we can say that if our Crusaders hadn't taken it, what would the Muslims have done with it? They'd have got hold of it. That'd be the end of that. So we have this story about Jesus. He's curing a little girl. He's there's a woman who has an issue of blood. She touches the hem of his garment, thus validating and in fact creating, I think, the subsequent tradition of having relics in the Catholic Church. In fact, we find in the Acts of the Apostles that Peter's handkerchief is sufficient to actually to get people cured. So really, nobody, it seems to me, can challenge the Catholic Church's teaching about relics. And
you're a living example, sir.
A relic. Yeah, I've been here over 25 years, haven't I? But I'll tell you what. Hold on.
Is whether this is approved by the British Board of Censors.
Well, I'll send it to them. Don't worry. I check with them before anything is done with it. Probably.
The horror section.
Don't worry. Listen. The point about relics, I'm always looking for a few quid. Would you like me to cut a bit of my t-shirt off? For a £5, it's yours.
Yes, I know about Scouts.
No, Eric. The wood. Oh, I see it.
Talking about carbon dating, what's yours?
Mine. Well, I've been dated to over 50 years. But I think you, sir, are a perfect example of what's wrong with this country.
Oh yes.
You see, in the Middle Ages, I might have made a few bob.
Yeah.
Now, what's this? You won't open your wallet for love nor money.
You know what I mean? Well, it's all, you haven't got a summit or whatever they call it to slide the cards. You see, if you were up to date, you would have a.
Oh yeah, you mean I could take credit cards?
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
This is modern.
You were saying it was in the House of Savoy, then it was subsequently
Came into the hands of the Catholic Church.
was any money changed hands?
I don't think it was like you give this to us and we'll give you some money. There may have been some deed drawn up. I don't know anything about that, I'm afraid. But you know what? Let's imagine for a minute there was like some church, some cardinal said, I'll line your palms with silver if you give this to the church in your will. I think it was bequeathed, you see. But even if that happens, all I'm talking about is not the dirty doings of cardinals and bishops. We could talk about that all day. My friend would get quite excited if we were to start on that subject. But I'm just talking about the objects in themselves.